All right, ladies and gentlemen, going to do a quick follow-up video to the 6-hour video I did with Tello yesterday. I wasn't able to do it at the time because I basically just wanted to sleep. One thing I did notice was that the volume was a little low on my end. This is OBS doing its thing from time to time. So sometimes I need my volume at 100%. Sometimes I need it at like 120%. But apparently right now it needs to go up to like 150%. Like what the balls? So okay, whatever. We'll just roll with that. What else do I want to do here? Whoa, hello, Chrome. Are you okay? Right. So I want to do a TLDR video on that 6-hour video. That way we can avoid, just in case nobody wants to watch the damn thing, which I can't blame them for at all. Where's my actual stuff here? Yeah, thank you. Weirdo. Okay, cool. Right, and so that's loud. So we'll do a lot of pausing and finding things in the video to actually talk about here. But generally speaking, we're just going to be shooting the shit as a general rule. Boom. All right, cool. So things that I learned in the Tello video, we're kind of in agreement that the challenge mode system for Molten Core is both a good thing and a bad thing. And what I mean by that is with some very minor tweaks, it could be really, really good. And I hope they make these changes into the next challenge mode. So, for example, when it comes to rewarding what people want from a challenge mode, or the player base that wants a challenge mode, what they want from a challenge mode. So, just to be specific, horrifyingly specific, about 10% of your player base in a MMORPG like Classic World of Warcraft is going to actually want to have a challenge mode. They want the challenge mode to actually be challenging, and they want to be rewarded by the challenge mode. Well, there's only so many types of rewards that you can give them that are even worth considering. So, for example, you can't. It's not worth considering giving them the best gear in the game and making and at the same time giving them an extremely good challenging content, because if you give them content that only 10% of the player base can possibly clear and the best gear is locked behind that, it's terrible, awful, no good game design. So the other two options for rewarding them are you give them more gear faster, or you give them a cosmetic reward. Those are basically your two options. Blizzard basically did both, right? So there's the challenge. They have the heat system in the game, and they're rewarding you at Heat 3 with both more loot drops and a cosmetic, like, fiery award from the loot drops, right? However, what the challenge mode is missing, this is fine, but what the challenge mode is missing is that extremely hard content. Heat 3 is laughably easy, believe it or not, which is fine for Classic WoW, but it's not worthy of being called challenge mode content. It's actually easier than Heat 2, believe it or not. It's literally just a gear check. It's actually horrifyingly easy. Our suggestion, and I ran this by Tello, and he agreed, our suggestion is that Heat 2 and Heat 3 should drop the exact same amount of loot. Okay, so there's no increase in loot drops from Heat 2 to Heat 3. You make Heat 3 a legitimate challenge mode. So, like, it's actually hard enough that only 10% of the player base can actually beat it. And on top of on top of that, you make Heat 3 have the cosmetic rewards. That way, that if we see people in the world with that cosmetic improved gear, we know that that's a man. We're like, oh damn, that's a man right there. That dude right there is a fucking raider. Holy shit. Which is kind of what they want from a challenge mode in the grand scheme of things. The reason why you don't want to give them an increased loot drop, in my previous videos, I always said you can give them more loot or you can give them a cosmetic reward. I never said giving them both at the same time, because I was aware that that's not really a great idea. That's not a great idea because it's far better if you split the difference, if that makes any sense. and you just how do I put this? If you're giving them increased loot drops, you can't make the challenge mode all that difficult. But the moment we're talking about cosmetic rewards is the moment we're talking about we can make the difficulty whatever the hell we want it to be, practically. As long as it's reasonably beatable by 10% of the player base. But how do I put this? If we give them both cosmetic rewards and increased loot drop, and it's so hard that only 10% of the player base can actually get through it, you're actually going to piss off the rest of the player base to a rather significant degree. I think it's stupid and childish for them to be upset. But, I mean, welcome to human psychology, right? They're like, oh, I'm raiding, and they get more loot drops than me, and their drops look cooler, boo-hoo. And I'm like, who cares? But I guess they do, so I have to account for that. So, yeah, I like the heat system. The only changes I would suggest making to the heat system are make Heat 2 and Heat 3 drop the exact same amount of loot, and then make Heat 3 have the cosmetic reward just like it does now, and then crank up the difficulty on the Heat 3 so that it is a legitimate challenge mode. Nobody, you'll make 10% of the player base super happy, and you'll probably piss off like 2% of the player base, which is a fair exchange in the grand scheme of things. So the heat system is very, very close to being really, really good. I would not throw the baby out with the bathwater. She's minor tweaks and she's good to go. So that was the first thing that we basically covered. That was interesting to me. Other things that were interesting was the Agies Rune for Paladins. The rune that when you get hit by an attack, damaging spell or attack, as long as single target, I do believe, there is a 2%, no. There is a 10% chance that, you get a Reckoning stack, okay? What we've discovered, and if I pull up Tello's little thing here, what we've discovered is that those extra Reckoning attacks that you gain from the Agies Rune can stack a Wreck Bomb above and beyond 4 stacks, which is probably bad for the game and is technically a bug, right? So, for example, every time I'm crit by an attack, I can only stack up to 4 times. But once I'm stacked up to 4 times by normal crits, the Agies Rune Reckoning procs will keep going into oblivion. And we basically have that showcased where when Tello's wreck bombing me, sometimes he's wreck bombing me for like 7 attacks. Sometimes he's wreck bombing me for 10 attacks. And I'm just standing there with dick in hand. The other possibility that it could have been was that Seal of Martyrdom was proccing, because I had him use Seal of Martyrdom for a while there. That Seal of Martyrdom, the reflect damage from Seal of Martyrdom was proccing the Agies Rune, and those extra charges were being fed into the current Wreck Bomb that we were doing. But after closer inspection, that's not how that mechanic is working. Any additional procs you get from a Wreck Bomb due to Seal of Martyrdom and the Agies Rune are being fed into the next auto attack. Oh, I think this is playing. Yeah, this is playing. Let me pause that. I was watching an NPC walking in the background. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, so the Reckoning Rune is likely bugged. That might be one of the reasons why people are complaining about Paladins being a little overpowered right now. Just be advised. That probably needs to be fixed. And specifically, the Agies Rune is having problems. Other bugs that are still in the game, but it might take Blizzard a little bit of time to fix. Let me go find it here really fast. Pull up the comments here. Is that Flash of Light. Passes and procs, Flash of Light. Okay, I think it's this guy. His comment was really good. Okay, I'll read this comment here in a second. So, Flash of Light is currently... no, my bad. Sacred Shield's hot from Flash of Light is technically bugged. She is double dipping on the minus 30%. So the Flash of Light spell has a minus 30% healing in PvP, and then the hot it generates also has a minus 30% healing in PvP for a total of a 51% healing reduction. Don't quite know how to fix that coding. Worst case scenario, I would just go in there and write an extra bit of code that buffs the healing of that hot by in PvP by I think it's like 42% or something like that, would bring it back into line. But this guy had a really interesting comment. He's obviously a coder and knows what the hell he's talking about, or maybe he doesn't, and he's just pretending. I don't know. But he wrote, in vanilla, Flash of Light and Holy Light are treated very differently from other healing spells on the same, or the same spells, but in other expansions. So in other expansions, I would remove that. But normally healing spells will have spell effect heal. Okay, so spell effect heal, not Flash of Light and Holy Light. In vanilla, both of those use a script effect instead, which triggers a completely separate spell that does actual healing. Spell ID 19943 is max rank Flash of Light that you use. Spell ID 19993 is the triggered spell that does the actual healing for any rank of Flash of Light. All right, interesting. Which has a base heal amount of 1, subject to change by a spell script. All right, so whatever the hell he's talking about there. This means that they need to script the trigger healing spell correctly after calculating the correct amount from the triggered spell without applying the PvP nerf to the triggering spell and the triggered spell together. Yeah, whatever. Or we can just find a way to buff it by like 43% while in PvP, and that'll also solve the problem. Because I do believe a 51% buffed by like 42%, I do believe. It's actually 49% because it's a 51% damage reduction. But if I multiply this by like, 0.43 or something, I do believe we're going to get close to 70%. Yeah. So that's the other option. I'll try 0.42 here really fast. I mean, I'm not a programmer, so it is what it is, right? But I mean, yeah, so I guess we go 43 or 43.5 would be my guess. Possibly. So yeah, so that's bugged. Definitely needs to be fixed. That's probably another thing that's really hurting Paladin right now. So for example, my Flash of Lights, when I use Sacred Shield, if I'm not in, if I Flash of Light myself so that it doesn't have the PvP damage reduction, and then I put myself into PvP while that hot is active, the hot will change from like 86 to like 60 something, right? So that's that's when I only have the 30% damage reduction. When I get on the 30% damage reduction, is it 86? I don't think it's that high. I think it starts out like 70, and then it gets knocked down to like 50 something, and then it gets knocked down again to something stupid like 25%. It's actually terrible. So it's like a 25 HPS hot rolling on you when it should be closer to like a 50 hot rolling on you. It's really bad. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so that's still bugged in the game, which is interesting. Now let's talk about Shaman stuff specifically. So I'll just let it ride. I can't remember if this is before or after I put the talents on. How far? Oh, we haven't been dueling for quite some time here. So let me actually put let me get it with the talents on. Okay, Flame Shock. Let me check this Lava Burst here. Okay, that might be with the talents. I don't know. I did a bunch of bursts into Tello when I wasn't talented, and it was really sad, right? Because I completely forgot that there's the plus 100% fire damage from the bursts, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I definitely have it here. So this ought to be interesting. We need to go a little bit before homie shows up and deletes me. There we go. That's a little bit better. So 1,000 nature damage. We've got the burst going here. Very interesting. Only 500. Yeah. Okay, so whatever. I'll just let this run in the background, even though it's going to be a little distracting for me. In fact, I'll pause the video. Ha ha. So One thing that skipped my analysis of Paladin versus Shaman fire resist perspective is I didn't realize until recently just how bad or how much fire resist is affecting Shaman burst. Fire resist mathematically is doing terrible, awful, no good things to Shaman burst. Here's why. So let's say I had 200 fire resist. All right. 200 fire resist is a 50% fire damage reduction. And how that's going to work in classic World of Warcraft is it's not quite going to be this way, but how the game will basically damn it, would you stop? There's a dog. I need a drink of water. So how the game will handle you having 200 fire resist and a 50% fire damage reduction is every 4 spell casts that come your way, the game will basically roll like an RNG dice, right? But of those 4 spell casts, one of them it'll be resisted for 25% damage. 2 of them will be resisted for 50% damage, and 1 of them will resist for 75% damage. And when you total all of that together, you get an average damage reduction of 50%. Like, that's how the RNGesus works. But what this means is that there is a 75% chance that when that lava burst comes your way, that it is 50% resisted or better, which is completely mental if you stop and think about it, right? So Tello here, when I'm bursting on him, he has like 180 fire resist. And I've done the math at 180 fire resist. When I do these lava bursts and stuff into him, there's a 30% chance, rather than a 25% chance at 180 fire resist, that it's a 25% fire damage reduction. And there's a 70% chance that it's 50% reduced or better. What's terrifying about this is that a 50% reduced or better lava burst is a spell that might as well not have been cast. And it was really screwing up my offense as an elemental shaman, even though I was terrible mechanical in this video testing wise. It was really screwing with me because of the slow speed of the lava burst travel time. It's because I literally, when I cast lava burst, I literally have to sit here. I could activate my elemental mastery, I think. I really don't know. But I have to sit here, and I could activate elemental mastery right now. But I have to sit here for like half a second, wait for this damn thing to go out there, and then mentally register that it's not a 50% reduced damage. It is a 25% reduced damage. I think this 780 is actually a 50% damage reduction, believe it or not. And then I have to ask myself, do I really want to expend my burst into a lava burst that got 50% fire resisted? The answer is hell, F, and no. And then it gets even more interesting because what this means is that if you're at 180 fire resist effectively, so for example, if you had 200 fire resist and the enemy had 20 magic pen, you'd be at like 180 fire resist effectively. It's a 1 in 10. 1 in 10 of my lava bursts will have a 25% damage reduction and will crit. The reason for this is because you're cleansing off Flame Shock, right? So with Flame Shock on and the guaranteed 100% critical strike chance, it's a 30% chance my lava burst is only 25% resisted. If I then cleanse off the Flame Shock, suddenly if this shaman has a 30% crit chance with lava burst, it's going to be 30%, and then only 30% of the time the spell is going to crit, which I need, and then 70% of the time it's going to be 50% resisted or better. And by the time you're done doing the math and you realize that shamans actually don't have 30% critical strike, and they're not going to have 30% critical strike on lava burst for some time, because how they get 30% critical strike is through their talent tree. but that's only for their lightning spells. So their lava burst is only going to have like a 25% critical strike chance, not a 30% critical strike chance, blah, 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 blah. It's a 1 in 10 lava burst. And lava burst is on an 8-second cooldown, which means that's 80 seconds of the shaman not skipping a beat, casting lava bursts before he finally gets it to crit and to low roll resists, and he can finally burst on the damn thing. Holy crap, it's terrible. It's just so bad. So I'm like, wow, fire resist really fucks up the burst here. So for example, I'm asking Tello to keep fire resist on, so he's going to take a little bit of extra damage. He clearly doesn't have Sacred Shield up, otherwise this would do even less damage. Let me go to a burst where he actually does have Sacred Shield up. But this is making me confident enough to actually make a PvP video. I think I'm trying to charge him up right now so that we can test Wreck Bombs. Hey, he's about to come at me. Okay, so I resist the stun. He's still going to try it anyways. Yeah. Didn't do all that much. But let's check it out here. Okay, so there's the shake. So there's the Flame Shock. The Flame Shock only did 133 damage. That's probably something silly, like at least that's probably a 50% or a 75% fire resist. Here comes the Lava Burst. His Sacred Shield is active. So the Lava Burst comes out, hits him for like 600. His Sacred Shield in his gear there, he's only rocking like 4,600 HP, I think. His Fire Resist is like 180. And his Sacred Shield is pretty limp dick at like 270. Maybe it's 300. But you can see the difference between if I fast forward and he eats these Lava Bursts without Sacred Shield up. It'd be 780, right? So Sacred Shield's taking a chunk out of that. If I flash forward to my proposed builds that have like, 5,400 HP, they have like 190 to like 200 fire resist. They have 450 roundabouts. Sometimes it's 430. That's for Reckoning. Sometimes it's 470. That's for Holy Shock. Depending upon what gear you're using. Lava Dredger, not Lava Dredger, blah, 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 blah. The Sacred Shields on average are about 450 Sacred Shields. These Lava Bursts are supposed to crit you for 2,400 damage. But again, if your fire resist is high enough, it's going to be a 1 in 10 Lava Burst that both crits and is low rolled. So if the thing crits and is low rolled, it'll only do 1,800 damage. But it'll also activate, Sacred Shield will also need to be reduced from that. So you'll take like 1,350 fire damage, 1 in 10 lava bursts that come your way. The vast majority of lava bursts that are going to come your way won't actually crit you. But if they do crit you, they have a 70% chance well, if they don't crit you, the lava burst is going to look more like this. It'll be 1,200 damage, and then best case scenario, it's only 25% resisted, and then you're minusing 450 from it. So you'll take 450 damage. So rather than this 780 or that 600 that we saw before with the weaker Sacred Shield, you're only going to take 450 damage, which is incredibly hilarious. Of course, if it's if it was 50% resisted, God help you. Divide by 2 equals minus 450. It's going to tickle. Like, I literally thought that it was bugged when I was doing it, and it was like 75 resisting initially on Tello. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Is it bugged? Like, what's happening in life here? Let me do some math here really fast, because I can actually check to see if I'm talented or not as a shaman. All right, so the spell critted, but it would only be a 1.5 increase. He might have only 25 resisted there, so we multiply it by 0.75, yeah. And then okay. So what is this telling me? He 50% resisted, more than likely. So I crit, so it might be 1,800 times, fuck off. 1,800 times 0.5 equals 900. I don't know, man. I might not be talented. That's why we're pulling out the calculator here. Let's do a crit. that is 50% resisted. And then we reduce it by Sacred Shield, right? It's just minus 450. It's that simple? Yeah. So 750s. Okay, cool. The point is, it's going to take like about a 1 in a 10 lava burst to actually do anything to you. And when it finally does do something to you, it's only going to do like 1,350 damage. This Chain Lightning, hopefully it crits. No. Use the Mastery here. Come on, use the Mastery. Use the Mastery. You can do it. Come on, Pally Time. Oh, yeah, he did the bomb. Okay, we were just waiting on the thingy. Let him heal up. I want to see the lightning mastery damage. This shaman has no HP. He's got like 4,200 HP. They're very, very susceptible to being bursted. All right, lava burst out. We're trying to charge up his wreck bomb right now. And chain lightning crit him for without sacred shield for like 1,200. It's not happening, bro. Like, I don't even think I earth shocked him. Did I earth shock him? Am I a good player? Let's go. Okay, so chain lightning, Garbanzo, and then earth shock. Okay, so I fucked up the earth shock. Okay, cool. But the earth shock should hit for double damage. I might not be talented here. Let me actually zip forward to when I damn well know I am talented. Let's do that. I could just go do a target dummy and do some damn math. I mean, what am I actually doing here? You know what I mean? Like, what are we actually doing here at the end of the day? Yeah, that's him deleting me with wreck bombs. That's us testing the whole Aegis thing, which is all interesting. Okay, so I did use burst recently. And this is me talented. Okay, cool. So, back it up a bit. Lag the fuck out, yeah. Okay, so this is what it looks like talented. So we're trying to charge up his wreck bomb right here. So that's the flame shock, a crit, 400. Here comes the lava burst. Okay, so this will actually be a talented lava burst. That's a 75% resist if I ever saw one. All right. A good start. What about the chain lightning? He's got a sacred shield up too. This is bad. And then earth shock. So I screwed up the earth shock somehow. That's interesting. That earth shock should crit though. And some of these numbers are legit. So at least I get the earth shock critical. I do believe when the chain lightning crits you, it should crit you for like 1,500. I'm just gonna rock with 1,500. Burst trinket, all that good stuff. Yeah, we'll just say 1,500 equals. And then the earth shock, which I swear to God, maybe this is like a downranked earth shock. It's not doing anything. Is he resisting it? What's happening? I have no idea. But earth shock should hit you for like 1,800 on like a good burst. But that's like 4,650 damage. That's the best case scenario for the shaman. You're going to survive that comfortably, even no problem. Even Tello here would survive that because he's got 4,600 standing HP. His Sacred Shield alone will cause him to survive that. So what I learned, basically, was Fire Resist completely screws over Shaman Burst. Like, it does terrible, awful, evil, no good things to Shaman Burst. Like, I just don't know what to tell you. So much so that I'm going to go make a PvP video when I'm done with that here. What else did we learn? There was something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember. Aegis Rune being bugged. Paladin Rune being bugged. Aegis bugged. Flash of Light bugged. Shaman doing weird stuff. We did a bunch of Paladin versus Paladin duels. That was really interesting and exciting. Learned a lot about that. There was something else I learned in this video that really tickled me pink. But I think that about covers it. I learned a lot about the Aegis mechanics and how they're a little bit bugged. They're not feeding into your current Wreck Bomb, but they feed it into your next Wreck Bomb. I learned about how fire resist really screws over Shaman Burst, like really bad. Oh, the last thing, the real reason I brought Tillo out here in the first place was Tillo has Typhoon. And what I wanted to see is what does Tello's mana issues look like when he's using Typhoon. So basically, I have him and I just have him beat the crap out of me with Typhoon. And I just want to look at, like, does he have mana? Like, what does his mana situation look like? And it looks really good. You're not allowed to have seals when you fight a shaman, which really sucks. So your mana regeneration is somewhat bad. But other than that, he seemed to have a pretty good time of it. So, for example, when I'm forced to fight a shaman, I'm forced to use like a very fast one-handed weapon to get my mana back, as much mana back as I possibly can get. I've been wondering if a fast two-hander would be sufficient mana regeneration. It seems, my bad, a fast two-hander would be sufficient mana regeneration. It seems to be the case. Lord knows it'll do a lot of damage if you're allowed to keep a seal up. The problem is when fighting shaman, you're only allowed to keep one spell on you. Literally, you can only have one spell. You're not allowed to have nice things. You can only have one spell. That means that you're allowed to have Sacred Shield or you're allowed to have Seal of Martyrdom, and you're not allowed to have anything else. So the reason why you're allowed to have it up is if I Sacred Shield and he purges, and I Sacred Shield and he purges, and I Sacred Shield and he purges, we can do that mana trade back and forth forever. It costs the shaman 52 mana for purging. It costs me 180 mana to refresh my Sacred Shield, so it can be purged off again. But during this entire exchange, like I'm just purge spamming him right now. During this entire exchange, the paladin is beating on the shaman to regenerate mana, and so you just end up basically nobody ever runs out of mana. Nobody can really kill each other. The other option, of course, is Martyrdom Purge, Martyrdom Purge, Martyrdom Purge. That is significantly more mana efficient because the Martyrdom is only going to cost like 60 mana to refresh for the 152 mana that it costs the Elemental Shaman. But what am I trying to say here? And so not only is it more mana efficient, but you have Seal of Martyrdom up, so you're going to do a lot more damage to the shaman, so they have to heal themselves more. On top of that, you are going to get a lot more mana back from Judgment of Wisdom, right? So those are basically your two options when you're fighting a shaman, Sacred Shield into Purge or Seal of Martyrdom into Purge. I think with Typhoon, with Typhoon, you might consider doing Seal of Martyrdom, depending upon how you're geared. So it's really weird. I have mixed thoughts on it. So allow me to take a drink of water here. I think I am. I think I am. I think I can. I think I can. I think that at the beginning of a fight versus shaman, when their shamanistic rage is not on cooldown. So in the first minute of fighting in shaman, about a minute and a half. For the first minute and a half of fighting a shaman, they have 350%. 250% mana bar. So they don't have 5,000 mana bar. They have close to 1,300 mana. My bad, 13,000 mana bar. Why is this? Because once they start getting low on mana, they can pop Shamanistic Rage. It'll regenerate 75% of their mana bar. And then 60 seconds later, they can do it over again. So within the first, minute, 30 seconds or so of fighting a shaman, they have, 13,000 fucking mana to play with. So for the first minute, 30 seconds, you need to be as mana efficient and as healing efficient and as durability efficient as you possibly can be when fighting a shaman, because they have enough mana to push any button and all buttons that they possibly want to in the entire game. For at least a minute, 30 seconds. After that minute, 30 seconds, they've only got 170, that's not even that. After that minute and 30 seconds of combat, they only have about, at best, they have 100% of a mana bar to play with every 60 seconds. And that's because they're living entirely off shamanistic rage and whatever mana that they can regenerate from other sources. Like Power Surge here saying every 5 seconds you gain mana equal to 15% of your intellect, right? So they're living off of whatever MP5 they're able to muster and 75% mana regeneration every 60 seconds. That's a hell of a lot of a different story of trying to take that shaman, fight that shaman in PvP than it is to try to fight anything else that is going on, if that makes any sense. So at the beginning of a fight, I would definitely feel free to go Typhoon. That's fine. If you need even more mana regeneration, use a fast one-hander and a shield, or a fire resist offhand, whatever. It really doesn't matter. But you're definitely going to want to regenerate as much mana as you possibly can, and you're going to want to use Sacred Shield to encourage purges. Sacred Shield is kind of a really big deal here because it completely neutralizes Flame Shock and other things. I'll make a Shaman PvP guide in a moment, so I'm basically just double dipping on content at this point. Anyways, start TLDR here. The summary is start the fight off with for the first minute and 30 seconds with no other game plan other than to survive and to regenerate as much mana as possible. After that minute and 30 seconds expires, then you can switch to your Typhoon, for example, and you can start using Martyrdom rather than Sacred Shield, and I think you'll be doing really. I think you'll do really, really well if you're well built as a paladin, meaning that you haven't sacrificed your fire resist. All right, okay. So the last thing that I learned from all these videos and looking at like the WoW head and the gearing and so forth and so on is that I am now convinced that as a deep ret paladin, what you really want to do is you want to play as if you want to gear as if you're a Ret Reckoning paladin. Ret Reckoning paladins, their ideal gear is medium levels of mana. So they want to have like a 3,000, 3,500-ish mana bar, ideally. And they want to be super thick on the HP. So we're talking like, 5,400, 5,600. In the new Blackwing Lair phase, they're going to want to have like, 6,600 HP. They're going to want to be extraordinarily thick on the HP bar because the HP bar, its thickness is what dictates. It does two things for you. The first thing that the thick HP bar does is it lets you walk through the enemy burst and not give a shit. You literally just get to press W through the burst and then physically get on top of the enemy, which is worth its weight in gold. If you cannot do that with your paladin's current HP, the next thing you know, you have to start using Divine Steed, you have to use PvP Trinket, you have to use grenades, you have to use Goblin Mortars. Suddenly you have to dig into a deeper bag of tricks other than just pressing W towards the enemy in order to get the job done, which is not ideal, right? Because those deeper bag of tricks, rather than them being used to close distance and avoid being bursted, they could just as easily be used to help you kill your enemy when you're physically on top of them. Ret Reckoning, of course, doesn't like to avoid being hit. It's kind of Ret Reckoning's signature move. That you have Reckoning and you have Eye for an Eye, so you actually want to take the burst to the face. You don't want to mitigate it or interrupt it in any way, shape, or form. You want to cover the 30 yards between you and them while eating the burst to the face, getting all that Eye for an Eye reflect damage, getting all those Reckoning charges, and then basically deleting the enemy out of existence. That's how Ret Reckoning operates. I think Deep Ret would be extremely good for Deep Ret if they played the exact same fucking way. They do not have Eye for an Eye to play with. My bad. They don't have Reckoning to play with, but they still have Eye for an Eye to play with. And unlike a Deep Ret Paladin, a Ret Reckoning Paladin, they have Repent to play with. So imagine a Deep Ret Paladin if they have if they have high enough fire resist and they have high enough DP, a thick enough HP bar. So we don't care about their mana bar. We just care about their HP bar and their fire resist. that they're able to walk into an enemy burst, take it on the chin, get into melee with the enemy with plenty of HP left, get a bunch of things on cooldown. So now we have Exorcism on cooldown, we have Crusader Strike on cooldown, we have a Divine Storm or whatever on cooldown. We've gotten all of our damaging abilities on cooldown with the enemy. We have a lot of Eye for an Eye Reflect damage we've done to the enemy. And now we're repenting them. Then we Divine Light ourselves. We put in a nice big fat Divine Light so we get our HP back up to, it's probably around only about 50% at that point since our HP bar is so thick. You could make it thicker if you wanted to. So you put in a Divine Light and then you Holy Light yourself. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. They come out of the repent and your stuff is coming off a cooldown and you're just giving them the business again, right? That would be you playing Deep Ret in a similar manner to Ret Reckoning. Okay, so I'm convinced that in phase 3, that's pretty much going to be the way to go. I've already looked at some of the builds where they're like, you can have 6,700 HP, but you'll have a 2,000, 400 mana bar. I don't think Deep Ret, if you're playing it the way I just described, gives a shit. I think they're like, you're probably better off having like, 6,400 HP. Your mana bar being a little bit thicker, about 3,000, 3,500 mana, preferably. But more importantly, you have a ton of fire resist on you. That's the really big deal here. And what is the other thing? I guess that's it, yeah. And you just play like a Ret Reckoning Paladin. You use Repent offensively. Repent is not to catch people. Your HP bar is to close the distance. Repent is for you to recover your HP bar and let your cooldowns recover a nice big fat 6 seconds after you've done damage to them. So again, you want a thick enough HP bar, including the fire resist. The fire resist is a huge part of that thick HP bar. To close the distance from A to B, to walk through the enemy burst, to take it on the chin, to get into melee with the enemy, to still have enough HP left over that while you're physically on top of the enemy, you can do a full rotation into them before you have to repent them. Blah, 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 blah. Absolutely beautiful and disgusting, right? If you Hodge stun them and they trinket the Hodge stun, you just repent them. So at that point they have to sit it, and at that point you can decide: do I heal myself to full and then keep on them, or do I Divine Seed away from them and heal myself someplace else and come back later when my Hodge stun is off cooldown, since I just got their PvP trinket? But I think playing them like a Ret Reckoning Paladin is the way to go forward. To be perfectly honest with you. Anyways, I'll end the video here, and Deus Volt, boys. 42-minute summary? Fuck off. I have issues. Psychological issues, apparently. Anyways, Deus Volt.